Hi everybody, Mike Reese here for another martial arts chat. And I'm trying to use Twitter and all that stuff now, so I'm going to be leaving my Twitter account that you guys can follow me on Twitter. You can leave questions on Twitter, stuff like that. I'm going to bring up a couple of topics here. I got about 5 topics, probably more. So, and then we'll see what we can do. Okay, so the first topic that we're going to get into, this was asked by a guy on the YouTube page, which is great. I like seeing comments on there. It says, which of the what's the lack of regulation in what is the lack of regulation in the martial arts and self-defense field, or it says, which is the lack of regulation in the martial arts and self-defense field, and also the disadvantages and advantage of this. Well, the reason why there's not, we don't have a big overwhelming regulation here in the U.S. is because there was really nothing really founded. But I do know of people like Shihan, Alan Woodman, and many others. They have a huge board. It's the World Martial Arts Council, and it's made up of 400 martial artists, and it's various styles, various people, and they come from these guys are old school guys. Some of them traveled to learn what they learned, and some of them brought it over. And some of these guys are some old school people, and they're very good martial artists, and they do actually have the credentials to back that up. And they made a big book, and they actually will undergo that. Now the thing is, though, the regulation part of it is they don't have to for someone to open up a gym or open up a school. There's just nothing in the United States that really has that out there. You get a business license and you can open your school. You get a sales tax license to sell your merchandise. You can have a school that's lucrative in that sense. It's because of the lack of our society not really having a whole lot to do with that. And I'm sure there's other places in the world that don't have such regulations, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure that you have to pass some sort of credentials to say that you are teaching a certain thing. In Japan, you have to pass. You have to. The only way you can open up a school is you have to go in front of a board and be able to do certain things. The thing is, though, when you start looking at that, it also, and the good part about that is you're going to get actual good instructors that actually have done this. They can't just say they've done something and open up a gym or a school. That's the real positive part about it. The negative part about that, though, is it's very political, and you're going to end up in the politic game with them. They're going to end up, it's going to become very ugly because of the whole politics part of it. That's where the disadvantage comes from, and it's because everyone has to build, or they have to give and take, and everything has to be built up or something. So that you got to be careful on that portion of it, of how can I regulate it, but how can the regulations be seen as the biggest part of it is and the disadvantage of not having that, it means anybody and anybody can have a school. And there's really no one that's going to say, hey, guess what this person is doing? And, and they're like, oh, well, then he has to come before us and we say yay or nay to him having a school. We just don't have that anymore. And we don't have that here in the U.S. And like I said, because it's a big part of our culture, and even in places that's a big part of their culture, things have changed. And as things change, things become more political, or things become a little more capital, which means they're a little more about this than it is anything else. And sometimes that's where it starts distorting really good things. But that's why you end up with this organization branched off from this organization because they didn't agree with this organization anymore, and then so on and so forth. And then you got all these organizations. That's the reason why there's so many different martial arts styles. They did well. They were in this style for a long time, but they started modifying it, so it wasn't this art anymore. It really became more of their thing, so they renamed it, and it was their thing. And it kind of has grown from there. So why is there a lack? Because honestly, there's no way to gauge it. There really honestly is no way to gauge that kind of thing. Your information is your information. And honestly, there's guys in the Philippines that you can learn from that are very, very good, but it's not like they got this big setup thing out down there, as far as I know. And because these guys live, some of these guys are impoverished. You know, they just teach because they teach it, man. It's because they know it, and they feel that there's a necessity for it, for, you know, defending yourself and things of that nature. So there's that. Why there's other why there isn't, I couldn't explain any further, really, more than what I know, and that's basically all I really, really know about it. And it's mainly because there's really no way to regulate it. There really is no way to do it except for old school ways that don't happen anymore. And there's just not enough. And there's not enough people here, I think, in my opinion, that would say that have the knowledge enough to do it. And even if you're saying it under this, they can't even really regulate things. Even that World Council I was talking about, they can't even regulate anything. It's just they're saying, hey, if they're a part of this, if you see them on here and we endorse them, it really means that they're pretty genuine. And that's because of how thorough a background they do. But ultimately, you could. There's a lot of people out there that aren't seeking that kind of forefront fame either. So they may not even present themselves out there. They might have tons of certificates, but they just have it all packed away, and they just don't teach like that. They don't open themselves up like that. So you'll never even know about them, even from them. So you never know. So there's really just no way of really knowing. There is some, and like I said, the advantages are, if you had it, would be great, because then you know who was legit and who wasn't. Disadvantages, it gets really political, and you can end up getting a lot of you can still get junky things because of the political side of it, which means this person knows how to play the game politically better, but really is a poor instructor. So you still have those games. My second one is the internal and external working together in the martial arts, and how they can work in the martial arts. I find that to be ultimately very, very true. A lot of people, some people go one way or another, but there really is internal art to even the hardest of arts. Except for, even if you do boxing, you can transfer some of the things that they do to generate power in the internal arts, like compression, the step forward, the step stomp forward, the whipping motions, things like that. These are still things that you could apply in even just a really hard form to generate more power. And there's the reason why you can do that is, and that's how come these guys that look so small can generate so much power. It's because they understand the flow of motion, they understand the body mechanics behind things, and they understand how to generate energy into a small area. And it's not even just like a full-on shot. They know how to generate it from a very, very close distance, and they can do it because of these understandings of how the energy is, how basically transfer their energy forward into something else. That's where the internal arts really have a lot of real benefit, because they also don't even focus so much on physical brute strength. They focus on, they focus on tendon strength and health and internal health, like your organs basically working really well, and your digestion and all this stuff, and basically everything being able to work and flow really well. And honestly, that's about as big and much in fitness as lifting weights or running. And it's just that it really does go hand in hand. How can they work together? They should be working together. There should be no reason whatsoever they never intertwine. There should be an internal and external part to every. This is my personal opinion, because I think if you're going to be effective, you're going to have an external use and an internal method put together for your art. If you want it to be completely effective, if you want it to be at a complete system, in all thoughts, you should have internal and external. It should never be one or the other. People choose it to go that way, but if you really want it to be good for self-defense and for health, you really want it to be good for your joints and your muscles and your tendons and all that stuff, and still good for your muscles and your physicality, and then you need to have both. you need to have both, and that's where I think Goju Ryu is very good, and I think that's why it's actually very excellent for a lot of different things. That's why I think Aiki Jiu-Jitsu is very good. That's why I think you got your Shaolin styles and stuff like that. That's why I think those are very good. But that's why I think Kempo has some great merits. They could add a little more internal, but they understand a few things. That's why I think Kaji Kempo is good, because they do have these elements in there. But I think everybody needs. I think some people go a little harder, or some people go a little softer, and I think you need to try to balance it out. You need to have that balance. That way you understand the proper, basically proper functioning of both. If you're gonna do it correctly, if you're gonna do it, in my opinion, very very well. If you're gonna do your stuff really well, then that's what you need to do. So that's just that's my opinion. So the third one, I got asked about ASP techniques. How do ASP techniques and how does Kali move into ASP techniques? There's a lot of videos out here on YouTube. I know one of friends of mine, Ferdinand Vargas with the Raven Method, Raven Tactical. He even shows, because I think he's a Kunta Silat and Kali guy, and also Native American studies a lot of native arts, native tribal fighting, which is really really good stuff. And I think it's because it's very aggressive and just fighting, But he demonstrates this with police and security and things like that. He demonstrates how you can have your ASP and you can have it in your hand, and then you can work that, and then you can deploy it at one point. You don't have to have it deployed right away, but you can deploy it as soon as you draw it out. You can deploy it with your angle 1, or you can hit with it and then deploy it. They actually work hand in hand really really well, especially if the person knows Kali and Silat or both very very well. Doug Marqueta is another one that is good to look at for that, because he teaches law enforcement and military personnel, and he knows how, and they work that in, and it's because it's going to work the same way. The only difference that you're going to have is the fact that you might have to use it differently, with the fact that it's not already it's not a fixed stick. It's got to be deployed in some way. It has to be extended. So when you're dealing with it, you got to understand that you still have a weapon, though. You have your, what they would still consider the pumse. You sit there and you can still strike with that. And if you strike all the way through, as you should with any type of stick strike, you go all the way through. I could hit with that, but at the same time, as I do it, I deploy. But you have to work it. You have to understand how to deploy it right. Work on deploying it out, getting to it. Things of that nature, retaining it, make sure that you have it in those situations. But it works the same way. You can hook it up with the locks, move, snake it through, push through, that kind of thing. Come up there on the neck, pull it down. It's the same stuff. It really is the same stuff. It's just a matter of deploying it now. That's the only difference. Then the other one I got was, and this wasn't really a question. It was a comment that I looked at, and they were talking about how self-defense does have a lot of people out there just selling garbage, but then he started going on to talk about self-defense weapons, Kubotans, tasers, pepper sprays, stun guns, and stuff like that. And I was thinking, the interesting part about that, and he goes, because he said, don't get me on the fallacies of pepper spray. The only fallacy about pepper spray is that it works on everybody 100% of the time. That would be the only fallacy, and I don't think they say that anymore, because it's not true. However, the CO2 pepper spray that they use now, the stuff that they use now, that stuff is so potent. You have to really honestly work around it. You have to get better at it. You have to basically learn to suck it up and deal with it. You have to train your body to deal with it. The reason why I think people there are some people who can deal with it is because they've either gone through military training or they've been gassed before, so they can actually kind of know what it feels like, so they can kind of brush it off a little bit. But it's also proper training on how to use pepper spray and those types of sprays, any type of spray in general. Why people, and some people use wasp spray now because it has a stream and it's extraordinarily painful. And I'm thinking, of course, because it's poison. Why wouldn't it burn like crazy? They use that kind of stuff because it has a stream. Well, you can buy streams for pepper spray just as much as you can other ones, and they come in doses. If you look at the packaging of any type of pepper spray, you can see how potent it is and how the percentage of the dosage that you're giving compared to what you would have. And some of the ones that are just sold regularly that are really out there, they don't have much. They don't have a ton. They have enough that would distract a person, but at the same time, that falls on the teacher too. Do they know how to teach how to spray it? Do they know which way to go? Do they know how to spray it? Do they know that if they say it's a fog type, or do they know how to look at it and say, okay, this is a fog type, this is a stream type, this is a, what kind of type of thing do you have? Which kind of method do you have? And tell people what to look for. A lot of people don't have an idea. They say use pepper spray, but they don't know that there's like 3 different types of sprays. There spray types. There's different types of basic. The word escapes me, but there's different types. There's different levels of capacity, not capacity, but potency on each of the ones, on each of the types of pepper sprays. And same with stun guns. Stun guns and tasers, they have different voltages, and it depends on how high the voltage that you're going to get the result that you're going to get. And they don't have proper use that. And then he was talking about how those kind of travel into illegal in some areas, which is true. But you can say that about knives. There's some areas that don't allow any knives. You can't even carry a blade. Or they have some huge regulation with it. So even then, we can talk about that too. But that doesn't give anybody. That hinders people. But if you're teaching proper self-defense, your Kubotan, and he was talking about Kubotans and how there's a variety of things that not a lot of people know. You're right, and it's because a lot of people don't think about, I think it's also because the bad publicity Pressure Points gets through people like George Dillman, things like that, which he was really good in beforehand, and then he just kind of went way away from everything, and now it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how far away you came from being the really good martial artist as you were, to where he is at now. I mean, almost a laughing stock, really. And but because of that, because the bad publicity Pressure Points gets, things like that, people have gotten away from trying to use them. When in reality, acupressure, and pressure points and stuff like that, all that stuff actually works hand in hand with one another. And the fact is the pressure points, you can use them with a tool like a Kubotan a lot easier than you would if you were doing just like your knuckle. Inanimate objects always seem to hurt a lot more because you're not putting any pressure on your joints. You're just sticking something really solid into one of those points. Soft tissue points, these nice little nerve clusters and stuff like that. And when you do that kind of stuff and understanding the nervous system and you know where to hit, it's not even just that. If you can strike it, that's where these people start having even more of an effect. You start striking it like you should, it's good targeting, okay? These are just more advanced types of targets. Now, the thing is about this kind of, when we talk about Kubotans, when we talk about stun guns, we talk about the new keychains that you put your fingers through and it becomes a nice knuckle duster in a sense. The reason why people are coming up with these type of innovations is because you can't take a lot of stuff on planes anymore. You can't go through certain security checks anymore without you losing it completely. And at the same time, I think it should go onto the self-defense instructor to learn about self-defense ways, to improvise weaponry. So that way it doesn't matter where you're at, you have a weapon. But I think that falls on the instructor still. I still think that falls on the instructor. I still think that falls on the false sense of hope. And unfortunately, a lot of people say the same thing. It's the same thing about a gun or a knife anyway. They look at the tool, and goes for all these weapons, the tasers, all this stuff. People look at that tool, and they constantly look at that tool as that's the ender. That's the one that's going to give me my edge. They rely too much on the tool and not what their brain says. And, not to basically go beyond that. That's because of improper instruction, improper thought patterns, and basically allowing ignorance to continue to spread. And that's why people have that out there. That's why there's so much garbage out there. So it's more of it still falls on instructors to teach correctly, to teach how to use improvised weapons no matter what it is. You need to understand your art and other arts. If your art really doesn't cover this, then your art's very incomplete, and you need to go in and you need to find other ways to do it. You need to educate yourself to be a good instructor, or even if you want good self-defense, if your instructor's not teaching you certain things, you need to step forward and just do what you got to do yourself. That, or you're just allowing this person to tell you yes, no, and you're going, okay, I'll follow what you say. And these guys don't have, and anymore, there's a lot of people that just don't have what it takes to say yes or no on certain things because they aren't doing the research anymore. They're just allowing things to be as it is. Yeah, it's worked for years, I guess. I'll just keep doing it this way. All right, dude. Outhouses used to work years ago, but I'm pretty sure you're happy about the indoor plumbing. It's like you can't. So people kind of forget that innovation at times is not the devil's handiwork. Fire bad. No, it's fire's good, spear good. These are innovations that help you and help improve you. Same thing, your education further outside of just martial arts technique training. If you're being taught properly, you're being taught psychology, you're being taught body mechanics, you're being taught kinetic energy flow, you're being taught all these wonderful ways to how to utilize your energy better, and you're being taught different things in different capacities, and you're being shown all these proper ways of doing things. That's where it lies, okay? But that's the internal, that's the whole tasers and all that stuff. Really, honestly, the fallacy comes from people not being taught properly. You know what I mean? That really is it. Yes, there are people that are immune to it, but not 100% of the people are immune to it. Okay, there's like a very big, like the average person that will attack someone or something like that will be affected. Because if not, even if you put your thumbs in that guy's eyes, he's going to shake it off. And there's people that are out there like that. You kick them in the groin, they can take it. You stick your thumbs in their eyes, they're going to shake it off. So even then, there's people that if they hug you and you try to bite their ear off, they might enjoy it. So you can't just say, well, there's a fallacy in pepper spray because there are some people that are very tolerant to it. Then there's a fallacy to eye gouges, there's a fallacy to biting, and there's a fallacy to hitting someone in the groin and leveling them out, and there's fallacies to everything, right? Don't get caught up because some people are saying that there's a lot of false statements out there about it. Okay, either that or they would have discontinued it. If it was so prominent, if it was so bad, they would discontinue it. It's that simple. You know why? Because no one would get it anymore. And if they still are being used within the federal agencies, people say, well, you can't judge about that. But yes, I can. Because if it was so bad, if it was so non-effective, they would not use it. CS gas. If it was not effective, they wouldn't use it. It's pretty simple, guys. It's that simple. So take that as for what it is, which is just advice of trying to do your education on what it is that you think is first. Don't take what your cousin says or what some guy in a book says, because there's a lot of guys out there selling books that really, honestly, it's their opinion. and they're opinionatedly putting their stuff out there. That's like you guys paying me money for this video and me saying this is how it is, bar none. I'm actually giving an option of the fact that it's not completely true. There's some things that you need to look up. There's things you got to look at, research for yourself, and that's the facts. That's facts. Finding out the truth for yourself is the facts. Just taking what other people say is not the best way to go. Speaking of that, goes on to my fifth topic, and that's internet trolls. Internet trolls bug me, and it's because honestly, the society seems to. These people are ignorant in our society because they would rather prefer to listen to a guy that's trolling a site. They would rather listen to trolls than go out and research things themselves. So if you feel like you're being trolled, or if you feel like people are telling you that, you need to stand up for yourself. I'm not saying give in to them. I just watched a video recently, and the guy, the way he gave it across about, he goes, eventually people start believing what other people are saying. This is very, very, very true. Okay, take example, Frank Dukes. All I found in the beginning was negative stuff about him. I went out of my way to research myself and talk to people myself to see what other people had said about him, and you get my information that way. That's all. And that's what I wanted to know, because I don't like taking just the negative stuff, because if there's all negative and there's no positive, that kind of makes me go, why is there so much negative? But this guy really was a genuine article at one time. You can't be overly this popular, and these guys say they're journalists, and they go out and they look him up, and in the 80s, everybody's saying, yeah, he's the greatest thing, and now people are going, oh, he's not. There's a problem, and that means there's some sort of truth that's being left out, and that's what I found out, and that happens a lot of times. Robert Bussey has suffered that and stuff like that. Eventually, you got to come out. Eventually, you have to step up. And you have to say, okay, listen, because it's going to affect your students, it's going to affect your schools, it's going to affect everything about you. Everybody who sees a certain thing about you that's maybe even related to you, you are going to be seen as a joke, and they don't want to deal with you because there's so much information out there, and society is so ignorant, and I mean that in an educated way in certain ways. They're uneducated. I don't care how book smart they are. They don't go in and they don't research enough about martial arts because that's not where their head's at. They don't know enough to say yay or nay on this. They just take what they've seen. And if there's a lot more negative than positive, then they're going to see that. And that's what they're going to accept. And I agree with that. And I agreed with how he was telling it. And I agree with that completely. And I think people should do that. I think people should research on their own. Don't trust. And honestly, and if you ever have a chance, if you see this guy trolling a site, click on their name and see what they have. If they only have favorited videos, they have no uploads, and they have no pictures, they have no there's no avatar picture, there's no nothing, they are a troll. And not only are they a troll, they are more than likely being paid to be a troll. And there are some guys that are trolls, and they're just doing it because they're jerks, and they have nothing. They don't know squat. Do not take their word. Do not sit there and give them any mind, because they are really not worth it. That's just the plain and simple truth about them. There's one more question. I'm going to take this question because it's the only question that was asked, even though I gave everybody an hour to hook it up. How do I find a legit school and know the difference of a legit school or not legit school? Depends on your definitions of legit. If your definition of legit is they have certificates, they have this, that, they have all the bells and whistles, you can find anything that says premium martial arts, that has any type of commercial school banner, any type of black belt school, you'll see that a lot. Those are schools out there that are quote-unquote legit. And that doesn't mean that they're teaching you good stuff. It just means that they're out there as a legit school. Other than that, I would really discover it for yourself by experiencing teaching. How open are they to teach without money? How open are they to teach maybe just a simple free private class, give you an idea of what they do? Are they, are they confident enough in what they teach that they don't mind? Are they confident enough to say, hey, you know what, we may not be the fit for you, let me find a school for you? Sometimes those are the guys that are the most legit players in the game. These guys are the ones that really show you. And trust me, if you go to a class for free, or you get like a discounted class for somewhere and they let you come in and just you do this class, you will know by how they instruct and by the stuff that you learn within that period of time. If you're not learning anything within within 2 or 3 classes or anything like that, if you've learned nothing, more than likely this guy's not going to be, he's probably not going to teach you anything. He's not going to teach you anything more than what you need to know, and it's all the only stuff he does know. Legitimacy, in my opinion, is, can they demonstrate and prove they do what they know what they know, and they know what they can do what they say they can do. Can they prove that? Oh, awesome. And if they can, great. And then, do they have any type of credentials that show that they should be instructing? And some say, well, what's the well, come on, guys. Can they teach? And then you want credentials for one simple reason. You want to know you're not going to be paying some fraud some sort of money. Because there's a lot of guys out there that are frauds. Okay? And it's not the guys that gone here with ninjutsu and they're all on here about talking trash and all that stuff. They're not the ones that are like, oh, he's a fraud because he doesn't have my ninja scroll. Whatever. Okay? There's a lot of ways we could define a fraud, and one could be, well, let's look internally before we start looking outwardly, okay? So, as far as legitimacy, it depends on what you think is legitimate. In my opinion, the only way you're ever going to find a legitimate individual or a legitimate school is if you see the proof. Proof is, it's that whole term, that whole cliche term, proof is in the pudding. It's true. That's the only way you're going to see it. Is if the proof is there, it has to be there. Or what are you learning? You're going to be doing what everyone else is doing. Okay? So legitimacy is up to you, but I really say legitimacy to me is prove it. I don't care about paperwork so much as you want to show me paperwork, fine. I don't mind looking at certificates, but I know that there's people out there that are getting a lot of certificates with a lot of high Dan grading that don't do squat. So, or they're not even, they shouldn't even be grading anybody that high. So just know that there's people out there that recognize rank, and then there's people out there just giving rank over. And then even with some legit schools, man, I don't know, legitimacy right now is such a weird term, in my opinion, because there's people that have legitimate black belts and legitimate schools from legitimate organizations that really suck. So I would take a guy that's not so legitimate, that proves to me that he has the skill level that he says he does, that he may not be affiliated with anybody, but but he proves it on a time and time again. I would rather learn from that guy than someone who legitimately has all this stuff and they don't teach you junk. They either teach you crappy stuff or they don't teach you anything. So, but that's it for me today, guys. This is kind of a long one, but at the same time, hopefully everybody's enjoying this. And again, comments, questions, and tomorrow is my movie review. I'm going to be doing a review on Red Belt. If you've seen it, hey, man, comment. Let me know if you've seen it, okay? So I'll talk to you guys later. We'll keep on chatting. Later.